And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Roster Report here on Sunday. Actually, the Conscious Roster Report becomes the mastermind here on Sunday, August 31st, 2025, in the Gregorian calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265, 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we realign our cultural clocks. Welcome to the seventh millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. Sundays are where we get together our think tank and we look at what is happening across the world from a distinctly Pan-African perspective. Today's date is Sunday, August 31st, the end of Black August. And this culminates the end of our Black August fund drive. So here, let's just get this party started. Let me get my camera up and running here on your LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on your livinginblack.com. We're going to fade to this and we're going to punch. Here we are. We are up on LIB Radio. And I want to say greetings. First of all, let me welcome in our elder of the group. Welcoming in. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'm almost at it. Got to figure out what page I'm on. I got too many windows open. Baba Junius, we have you in the house. Aquaba, welcome. How are you doing today, Baba Junius?
I'm well. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. You're looking good, looking handsome over there. Brother Dwara, we have you up on the table. You're not looking so good today, but Brother Dwara, I know you are looking good where you're at.
Thank you, Baba. I appreciate that. Shikamoni to you both and Ubuntu Ma'at to the global LIB radio family.
Okay, and we are up and live and ready to go. Ready to go. Donald Trump. I hate to have to open every week with Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump likes it when he's the center of everyone's attention. But this guy's a mess. He almost makes me want to cuss again. I haven't cussed in many, many years, but man, Donald Trump makes me want to go off. What has he been up to this week?
Well, it's hard to say. He's up to so much mischief and so much mayhem, but he has increased the number of ships and personnel he sent to try to bogart Venezuela, I guess, a show of force. He's also flip-flopped. He talked about providing armaments that could go deep inside Russia, but at the same time, he's supposedly has given a no-no to Zelensky to carry out such attacks. So it's so much, and of course, his tariffs are kicking in, and we're getting these lies from the corporate and legacy media. And also, because we have a Labor Day coming up, I wanted to talk about his attacks on organized labor. And he does it primarily through executive orders. More and more, because keep in mind, this is only his 8th month in office for the second time, and he just keeps rolling out the EOs nonstop. And so he's ruling, in a sense, as an autocrat, bypassing Congress, like he bypassed Congress about the tariffs, because that's what a role of Congress is supposed to have. He's doing all this stuff without involvement of the legislative branch. And I fear that he has cultivated relationships in the judicial because of all the, shopping and how they put judges on that panel, which is not what we think it is. It's not some panel of these great legal minds. It's a political process. So it remains to be seen whether they'll back him on some of this stuff.
Brother Dwara, if you can recall, just a week or so ago, Donald Trump was trying very hard to get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Mm.
Now, as Baba Junius talks about, he's deploying troops against Venezuela. They are moving warships into the South China Sea, attempting to contain China's expansion and problems with Zelensky and USSR. Are you going to nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, Brother Dwara?
No, I won't be nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize. Although, as we said a couple of weeks ago, Alfred Nobel was no saint, and he had participated in the creation of things that became military application, TNT, dynamite, and I believe a liquid form or a gel-like substance as well. So it goes with the territory. We also just see war everywhere. I mean, Democrat versus Republican, Russia versus Ukraine versus NATO, Israelis versus Palestinians. It is that Uruguayan mindset that we talk about, where chaos and isfet seem to predominate, and instead of building and creating and working in harmony with Mother Nature, we see destruction, we see infighting, and so think of the raid, if you will, on the streets of DC, which I contend is also part of the depopulation agenda. In that, if 1,500 brothers are getting locked up, that's 1,500 fathers or potential fathers that have been removed from the streets. And now this push to, it looks like going to Chicago next. So keeping all these in mind, I also feel compelled to say that I think that we sometimes get hung up on this poster child image of Trump, and that's not to say that he doesn't make some of these wanton and unruly decisions by himself, but we cannot forget that this is deeper and bigger than just one individual. He has numerous advisors. There are people above him. He's been implicated in the Epstein files numerous times and on numerous flights. And so we have to also think bigger than just this image, this puppet of Trump, and also pay very close attention to what the World Health Organization is saying and doing, what the World Economic Forum is saying and doing. And most recently, the co-chairman that was recently appointed for the World Economic Forum is Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock. That's a very interesting move there that we need to pay attention to as well.
Good points. You make all good points. I'll only add, you mentioned Israel against the Palestinians. It's really kind of Israel against all of its Arab surrounding countries. And that's an indicator. And this expansion into Gaza right now, I would put that further on Trump against his Nobel Prize nomination.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, Israel would not do that without the explicit approval of the United States government. Baba Junius?
You're absolutely right. And Benjamin Netanyahu has no credibility whatsoever to nominate anybody for anything other than just an award for barbarism and savagery. So I think that's a PR stunt. It's also a trial balloon in terms of part of the psychological operation that's being waged against us, part of the Omni War,
Mm-hmm.
part of what you call the preparation for World War V and VI against the masses. That in a normal situation where you did not have this ethos of the Urugu, it would be seen for what it is. It's the attacks, like you mentioned, on their neighbors, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and the genocide in Gaza will be called out and exposed for what they are. But here in this society, where lies are perpetrated under the banner of truth and news, reality in air quotes, it just goes on. And plus, we've been so desensitized to killing, war, and privation that most of the people, this just goes over their heads, doesn't even register anymore.
That's right. That's right. Take a moment here. I want to say greetings to our listening audience is checking in today, looking at the Rumble page, which is our main broadcast site. Queen Mother Kashiba is in the house. She says grand rising to everyone. For Africa One checking in from the UK, Hotep Mastermind Panel and Global LIB family. Queen Mother Kashiba says, is Trump ill? There is gossip around that he is ill. Look at his hands and ankles. I would definitely agree that looking at the periphery, Donald Trump does not look to be a healthy person. Anybody else want to check in on that?
Well, from an African perspective, when you talk about well-being, health and well-being, you're talking about it in totality.
Mm-hmm.
So
that includes his mental state.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say that includes his mental state as well as his energy. You know, African people talk about vitalism, your energy, and I think that's on the wane. I think his mental acuity is on the wane, and I think what little moral scruples he has have been compromised, so that he can do and undermine and underwrite all the things that we just talked about, these wars that are going on, when in fact he campaigned as the peace president. He promised to get us out of forever wars and initiate peaceful commercial and geopolitical relations with the world, and he's doing the exact opposite. And it is apparent to most people that war is on the horizon. He's just picking fights any and everywhere he can, hoping that something will happen.
Inevitable that war is on the horizon. That's rather frightening, especially considering the time that we're in and the enemies that the U.S. is elevating. This idea of wars is kind of frightening. Of course, Venezuela and China have now developed some sort of mutuality pact. Is China setting it up to position itself in the Western Hemisphere as a military power?
Well, they're doing it more through commerce. Their MO is the exact opposite of the Europeans. The Europeans was one about piracy, invasion, war, genocide. The Chinese want to have commercial relations, but they also want to have geostrategic positioning here. So remember, at one point they were thinking about constructing a canal that would rival the Panama Canal. So that was put in abeyance or fell short. They are also trying to cultivate relationships with the global South, because they understand that even if there's a war, after the war, if anyone's left, they're going to have international commerce and international relationships. So they are not going to be intimidated. If you look at what has happened with Trump and his negotiations with particularly the Chinese and the Russians, when they had this whole thing with tariffs with the Chinese. The Chinese did not back down. They made some minor concessions, but they sought out other trading partners, just like they did during his first administration. It's that bogus summit that took place 2 weeks ago. Putin didn't make any concessions. In fact, if you look at what happened right before the thing they had the meeting on Friday, early in the week, he stepped up his attacks on Ukraine. And then after it was over, he stepped it up again to the point that he just bombed a a military and a drone plant in Ukraine a couple of days ago. So war we're engaged in war already. Economic sanctions are a form of warfare. Embargoes and collusion with other nations to withhold either resources or to try to prevent the development of another country or a group of people or a bloc like BRICS Plus is a form of warfare. So we're already engaged in war. It just hasn't gotten to the apocalyptic stage yet.
Brother Dwarva, your comments about the possibility of a hot war involving the U.S. population?
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold for me. On the one hand, it is very important for us to stay up to date on what is going on globally. And then there's another part of me that just wonders if for years now, this looming threat of, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And I have an article that I wanted to spotlight today. I didn't want to lead with it per se, because I do have some other things that I think is important for us to pay attention to before getting to this one. But I'll just quickly mention, it's a very interesting article which talks about, it's called Stop Imagining Dystopia. We Can Create a Garden of Eden Future. And it talks about agriculture and getting back to the soil. So I'll bring that up a little bit later. But my point here is that the article is suggesting that we are almost creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Baba Junius reminds us of predictive programming. And so if we get into this kind of almost spiritual universal law of causation mindset, that we are always on the brink of doom, even if that is a reality in many cases, I'm just wondering, how do we balance that out? How do we both maintain Ma'at and Ubuntu behind not only adversarial lines, but in a world climate that feels very hot, like you mentioned? And so that is going to require some deep thought.
Okay, all right.
Just to dovetail on what Dewar just said in his question, one of the things you asked is, what is Trump doing? Notice how he's proposing a return to changing the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. So he's just openly saying, this is it. We're going to bum rush the world. And they have to, in order to keep their hegemony going and their system going, because it's unraveling on every level.
Good points you make. And let me just greet a few more people who have checked in on the Rumble side. I want to say greetings to Brother Shabaka is in the house. Greetings, Baba, panel guests, and LIB family. I'm happy to be here with you all. We're happy to have you with us. Brother Daoudi is in the house. He says, greetings, Brother Keedy and Mastermind panel and LIB family. Daoudi Mahali, much respect. Dwayne asks a question. He says, have we failed our true Africans revolutionary? I see our political prisoners dying or have died in prison. And he may be referring to, oh, doggone it, I just had the brother's name in mind and I forgot about it. The journalist from Philadelphia, Baba Junius.
Mumia Abu Jamal.
Mumia Abu Jamal. Thank you. Mumia Abu Jamal appears to be, he's reported to be in the latter stages of dying, perhaps of diabetes. And Dwayne, I see his point. He sees our political prisoners dying or have died in prison. That's definitely a point. I personally think that African Americans are too weak to deal with liberating these political prisoners. And I hate to have to admit that. I think we're too weak to be able to do anything regarding the political prisoner camp unless we can convince Trump to issue pardons.
Well, but see, it's been a lengthy struggle for Mumia.
Mhm.
So they took him off of death row, but they weren't prepared to concede and let him out of prison. He's had health challenges. I just got a post a couple of days ago, a week or so ago. He's having problems with his eyes. I wasn't aware that he was, I knew he had, I think he had some kidney problems, but I didn't see anything, haven't seen anything recently. As far as what's the Alameen, H. Rap Brown, and so many others from the COINTELPRO era who are still languishing in jail, we've dropped the ball, but that's because of the attack on us as a people and any kind of dissidence and any type of, whether you want to call it revolutionary or revisionist or just activism. There's a major assault on that in this country, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. We're seeing the lethargy, the apathy, and this out and out cowardice on so many parts. And we saw that with the COVID thing, where we should have been warning our people not to turn our backs on our history, not to turn our backs on our experience. And people would just bum rush to go along with the program.
Yeah. And we're also looking at the way that Trump, in his executive decisions, executive orders, is attempting to eradicate the telling of Black history, Black our story. He's even gone after the Smithsonian. He's gone after colleges and their libraries and high schools and curriculum, etc. It's like a full frontal assault. And I'm almost wondering if there is an AI program that's designed to remove African Americans from the presence in this country. I'm wondering, does that AI program exist? Is it being used?
Well, there's a program that they were using to predict recidivism. And one of the factors was it tended to predict that Black men would be recidivists, meaning that they would be repeat offenders. And so this is pre-release, so this stopped the release and parole of a lot of our brothers who are incarcerated. I bring this up not so much from public safety, law enforcement, prison complex kind of thing, but it was one of the things that people objected to in terms of AI, because they recognize that the programmers and the designers included their own biases in the program. And so once the program got up and running, you started to see the bias. And that was one of the things that was pointed out about this predictive recidivism program. People, it reflected the biases of the engineers.
Mm-hmm. The reason I ask this is that there has been a historical record of the United States attempting to remove the Black presence in this country. You often hear me refer to here on LIB Radio the book An American Dilemma, The Negro Problem and Modern Democracy by Gunnar Myrdal. That is evidence of such a system. We have also referred to here on LIB Radio and across the community about Jim Crow laws and what was it called? After slavery, it was the rebuilding resilience. I can't remember in that post period, we had this apartheid system come up. The civil rights.
Excuse me. Sorry for an interruption. I don't
No
use
problem.
that Jim Crow thing because that's a euphemism. That's something that the Europeans put out there to minimize and trivialize apartheid, because that's what it really was.
That's what it really was. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So we have this historical record. We have the Europeans at their word. Who is to say now that there isn't a similar program, systemic program, that we may or may not ever find out about until decades later. I still contend that it has been decades, 80 years, since the release of An American Dilemma, The Negro Problem in Modern Democracy, and the overwhelming majority of black people in this country and around the world have never heard of the book. Never heard of it. The book was the largest study of Negroes in this country ever conducted, and most people have never heard of it.
Well, but that's not unusual, mainly because, as you well know, the book was written for the inner circle. You know, what they do, they have their white papers, they have their books. They use this to telegraph or give due notice about programs that they're considering, so that the academics, the administrators, and their fellow peers in the upper echelons of the power pyramid know what's going on, and they can push the agenda. The average person, the regular person, that book is not designed for them. They don't have any interest in it, even though it impacts them directly, whether you're black or white. It's just, this is just how they roll. We see more of this now with the think tanks, which I just call them their intellectual or data mercenaries. They can come up with any kind of policies and program to fit whatever their clients or their benefactors want. And we see that all the time.
A few more. Oh, you were saying, Dwyer?
Real quick, I was just going to take a little bit of an alternative stance on your question and say that algorithmic AI program is already in effect, because most of our people don't know anything about Africa, and the little that we do know is wrong. So I would say that maybe we're already disappeared in that sense. Because if we don't know who we are, as so many of our great elders and ancestors have told us, if we don't know who we are, then we can't know who we must become. If we don't know where we came from, you can't know where you're going. And so I'm wondering if since even before the times of the Negro Problem in Modern Democracy, Gunnar Myrdal's book, this has just been a continuous cultural amnesia process, and that we if we don't know who we are, then definitely that AI has already been in existence, even when it was just analog and not virtual.
Good point you make. Few more comments have come in. Queen Mother Kashiba, we were talking about Donald Trump's ill health. She writes, Vance has spoken that he is ready to step in if needed. He said so recently. And of course, we haven't heard much about Vance at all. I'm wondering, do statements like that mean they're disappearing him? Who knows? King Jason, aka the Snotball, says Israel killed Yemen's prime minister and their entire cabinet. Let that sink in. We're looking at a multi-theater war, for which Kashiba responded, the Houthi of Yemen attacked Tel Aviv in response to the killing of their prime minister and his cabinet yesterday. I don't know if everyone in the cabinet was killed, but to attack a prime minister and the cabinet during a cabinet meeting, whew, that's really drastic. Of course, what is to be expected of Israel but drastic at this point?
No, but see, they're signaling to the world that we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to bring about a greater Israel, no matter what you say, no matter what you think. And where's the outrage for that? Where's the denunciation for that? We saw South Africa took the lead, was the only country that had the gumption to actually pull their coat, pull the world's coat to what was going on, and take them to this toothless organization that basically only beats up on the global South or some weak Eurasian nation when they want to do something. They don't have any enforcement power. And the Israelis pushed back, and so did their lapdog Donald Trump. Because look at how he treated the South African president when he came to the White House. That was the real genesis for that attempted beatdown of him. It wasn't so much white Afrikaners or the South Africans that he was looking out for. He was doing Israel's dirty work. And it's also a breaking the buck kind of thing, where they're doing that to discourage anybody else from stepping up and doing the right thing.
Yeah, good point that you make. So many problems, so many troubles. I'm almost hard pressed to put my finger on the different things. And when we look at and when we ask about, is there a specific program to eliminate us, we cannot help but look at this book, The American Dilemma, and page 167 of the book, which in part is said, if we forget about the means for the moment and consider only the quantitative goal, there is no doubt that the overwhelming majority of white Americans desire that there be as few Negroes as possible. And then 3 pages later, they start to define the means of this new Negro population policy. To me, that is evidence of a genocide, especially thinking that that study was not just a random study or a small study. That was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie and delivered directly to Franklin Roosevelt's presidency.
Yeah, but again, like I said, that study was a part of the pyramidal power structures plan that they wanted to get out there. Keep in mind that Carnegie, the Rockefellers, the Kellogg's, and the whole list of these top millionaire families supported eugenics. They supported Margaret Sanger. They were enthralled by Malthus and his ideas, and they influenced state legislators to pass sterilization laws. So when you look at, just step back from that book, and remember what it was, like 1,200 pages or something like that?
It was 1,438 pages.
All right, so you step back from a major opus like that and look at what was going on around it, look at the history. This was basically their attempt to give credibility and credence to a plan that they wanted to further. There is an excellent article in the UN's review and it's entitled, I'm looking at it, it's on Abraham Lincoln. And I think they just changed the page, but you need to go up there and look at that and look at what the real deal about Abraham Lincoln, which very few of us know, and see how what Myrdal was doing was just a continuation of that whole policy of getting rid of black folks and what was going on, because the narrative has been set up to just totally whitewash that whole part of Lincoln and his administration. Encourage UN's, go up and look at the UN's review and find it and read it. It's very eye-opening. I knew some of it, but I didn't know all the details in terms of how much money and who was behind it. I knew that they did appropriate money to resettle blacks in South America, but I didn't know it was that much. I thought it was half that much. And we need to go read that. It's a lengthy read, but it's consistent with, and you're talking about this is like 1860 something, and Gunnar Myrdal was what, 30 and 1940 something?
That's right.
So this has been going on, this mentality, this whole plan, how to reverse what they did when they brought us here, has been going on for quite some time, even during the war between the states, which people misnomer as Civil War. So please go up and read it. Like I said, it's a lengthy read, but it's very informative, very fascinating. And keep in mind that Abraham Lincoln was a staunch supporter of the American Colonization Society. And
again,
he was a member of the Illinois chapter, and that's this book that they're reviewing and talking about in this report is an outgrowth of the American Colonization Society's efforts, which still existed up until the passage of the passage of the Civil Rights Act. By the way, it was still functioning up until that point, which was in the 1960s.
Again, what's the name of the document?
Let me have to. It's the name of a book. It's hold on a minute, Arthur. The True Face of the Great Emancipator, on UN's report, UNZ report, UNZ review is called the True Face of the Great Emancipator, and they are reviewing and looking at a book by Philip W. Magnus and Sebastian N. Page. The book is entitled Colonization After Emancipation, Lincoln and the Movement for Black Resettlement, University of Missouri Press. It was published in 2011. It's 164 pages. And it's a $28 book in soft cover.
Yeah, I did find it. I'll put up the link to for those who also want this these links that we share here. I'll put up a link to that as soon as my computer uncrashes over here. Okay, I got it. And the True Face of the Great Emancipator from the UN's Review. Gotcha. What are we supposed to be doing right now? Right now, what are we supposed to be doing in response to all of this? Do we just sit on our hands, cuddle up in a dark corner, and hope that the monster doesn't see us sitting over there in the corner or doesn't smell us in our sphere?
No, we definitely have to remain solutions oriented. We have to tap in to our indigenous and ancestral knowledge systems and wisdom teachings in order to stay resilient. And sometimes I think because many of our people, unfortunately, don't know the truth about our African history, we oftentimes fail to realize how resilient we are. And as Dr. Naeem Akbar told me personally, we need to tap in to that same great vital force that Baba Junius mentioned earlier that allowed our ancestors to survive the impossible. If we think about all that our ancestors have survived from the beginning of humanity, where we were facing predators and different things like that and different environmental weather conditions at the very earliest stages of humanity. And we have survived all the way up until this. We have it within our intellectual heritage and our current intellectual capacity to create solutions and to remember solutions that our ancestors have already created for us, and to re-implement them so that we can survive this blip in human history. Because again, if you look at the timeline of humanity on a scale, this is but a very, 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 very minute and small portion of history that we are in. But it's also a vital one as well, because we're on the brink of losing that humanity and becoming human. What the tech bros and the technocrats and the transhumanists call human 2.0.
Hmm. All right, all right. Whew. Any other stories that we may be overlooking or missing? And, I really appreciate your positive attitude, Brother Dwara. We do, and we have to prepare to pass leadership into the hands of younger generations. And I salute you for having prepared yourself. It's not like you're hiding or running away from any of the responsibilities that we must take care of, but you do constantly remind us that there is great reason to be helpful.
I mean, the Igbo have a proverb that I'll paraphrase that say that to resign oneself to defeat, or to lose hope for that matter, is to embrace a sudden death. And so I think that we owe it to our ancestors that that we have to just keep on striving and keep on thriving despite all obstacle, despite all hardship, despite all adversity, no matter what, and just continue to keep surviving and thriving. There's no other option, in my opinion. There's no other option.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The thing that you mentioned, I think, is you mentioned a key in terms of fear. If you go back and you look at and just remind us of what you wrote in your book, Panic, in terms of the fact that the powers that should not be use fear. And fear has been one of the greatest weapons that people who do not necessarily have best interests at heart of the collective have used to manipulate the collective. Sometimes it was done to promote good character and adherence to a certain style, but for the most part, people have used fear to dominate other human beings, to exploit them, and take advantage of them. And I say, it's not the weapons that this consciousness creates, these people who want to rule the world. It's not the material weapons, the bombs, the bullets, the missiles. It's the psychological weaponry. It's the fear. And fear does something to our brains. And when we're under a constant state of fear or perceptions of fear, it often immobilizes us and demobilizes us from taking the action that we could take just based on the here and now. But even more tragic, what Duar just talked about is the accomplishments of our ancestors who dealt with all kinds of adversity, all kinds of setbacks, all kinds of challenges, and came up on top.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean for us? Where are we? Are we at, one of the fade to black moments, Keith?
Yeah. You reminded me just this morning, someone sent me a few images that he takes my thoughts, my words that I've written, and translates them to a graphic. This is the one he sent me today. Master teacher says fear, F-E-A-R. The F stands for forward thinking, planning, and acting for the future. E, evolving economic development to enable sustainability. A, Africa holds the resources to solve the world's problems. And R, restructure existing spending to repair ourselves. So that is that acronym FEAR, reminding us of our potential.
And I would add for the A, I would add in addition to what is already there, action, because
Action.
it's going to require action.
That's right. Very, very positive action. So we must not lose hope. Sometimes I feel that I am sacrificing the future in latching on to the problems of today. And I know better than that. But the thing about it is that I think that we do best when we mutually reinforce each other. So I'm very, very honored to have you two brothers in this circle on the mastermind, reinforcing these moments when I go into that fade to black mentality, thinking that according to all of the statistics, we are losing and going to continue to lose. Then Dwara speaks up, and I'm reminded that no, we can't quit.
But we also have to remind ourselves that the psychological MO is to use those psyops to demoralize, demobilize, and to discourage us. In other words, their thing, they want us to accept their notion resistance is futile. And how do you do that? You make people think that they're up against these super intelligent beings. That we're up against weapons of mass destruction that cannot be neutralized, that we're up against superior forces, when in fact, we have the superior force within us that has been our guide all the while we've been on this planet.
That's right. That's right. We are live and direct here on LIB Radio today. We welcome your comments. Do share with us. You can share with us we are on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We are on Rumble, which is our main broadcast, as well as you now. We love hearing from you. If nothing else, hit the like button and just drop a comment in the chat and let us know what you think about your mastermind broadcast and any other topics you think that we should be talking about. We'd love to hear from you. Speaking of comments, we have a couple of comments from Queen Mother Kashiba is in the house. She writes first, bear with me, says, speaking of South Africa, it has been reported that 1.4 million Israelis and Ukrainians have been admitted as citizens to South Africa. South Africa wants more white citizens to live in their all-white towns and added to the population. Israelis are also running away to Cyprus. So that talks about the migration to South Africa is being encouraged by the South African government, and also that the dissidents against Netanyahu are actually fleeing Israel, and they're staying in the region, but they're going to Cyprus. That's very interesting. I had not noticed that immigration to Cyprus. Has anybody else paid attention to that?
Prior to the start of the 12-day war, this most recent war, there were a lot of Israelis, those who could escape. They went via the Mediterranean. They went to areas within the Mediterranean. So Cyprus, fits into that category. The other thing is, when you look at what's going on, I don't know if we talked about a couple of weeks ago. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was Israelis want to send Gazans to South Sudan. So part of their ethnic cleansing plan, they want to get them out of the area. They've asked their Arab neighbors to take some of them in, but now they also have a plan for to send them to South Sudan. And I can't remember. I saw something else with Uganda.
Yeah.
I know it was with the
Kilmar Garcia.
Yeah, I knew that, but I think I saw
There's Rwanda too on the table as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, both Rwanda and Uganda have a long historical record, as long as the history can be checked, as that of receiving immigrants and unwanted populations from other countries. So when we're talking about Trump's campaign to uh, export illegal immigrants from the U.S., both Uganda and Rwanda have reached out their arms and saying, hey, we're not going to not welcome you the way we did welcome other Arab and African refugees. Rwanda has a significant population of people from Afghanistan.
Well, that has always been the challenge of Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
We, unlike the Yurugu or the Eurasians, are xenophilic. We welcome the stranger. We welcome the other. That was the issue that we saw with the Europeans when their so-called age of exploration. No matter where they went, for the most part, they were welcome, or they were at least tolerated. Whereas, and even into antiquity, once they came out of the mountains, once they went into India, once they went into Iran, what is now Iran, once they went into what is now Turkey, and even into parts of North Africa, they were tolerated. They weren't run out. And because of the peaceful nature of the lands that they came and settled and invaded in, until it became out and out warfare, until they just got beside themselves and became the misbehavior just got to the point that it couldn't be tolerated anymore. Then that's when war broke out, or a pushback, let's put it that way, because they always came with nefarious purposes.
Is Urugu out of touch? Has Urugu pushed themselves in position to be out of touch with indigenous humanity on this planet?
No question. That's the war of the worlds that we're experiencing. It's just that Urugu now has the technology and capabilities to foist their consciousness on humanity. And that's what they're doing. While they're exterminating much of humanity, they're forcing us to embrace their values, to embrace individualism, isolation, selfishness, greed, perversion, and decadence on the world.
Yeah, I'd say also, besides the destruction of humanity, is the destruction of nature in general. I did some research looking at, well, there's a book, and it's hard to find now apparently, but it's called The Dark Side of Christianity. And I cannot remember the author's name, female author, off the top of my head. In that book, she documents the beginning of the destruction of nature with the Catholic Church specifically, in that they went around raising and chopping down and felling all these sacred trees. And reading that was very interesting, because that really kind of ushered in this war against nature, which we're seeing, but it's ironically and interestingly, the devil hides in plain sight, and deception is very interesting, because under the guise of healing and protecting the earth, Urugu steps in to implement in egomania their proposed synthetic, artificial, chemical, poisonous, toxic remedies under the guise of protection and safeguarding Mother Earth. So I had two quick articles. One, and ironically, this was portrayed on this website as good news, but when you read into it, you can see that it's a lot deeper than that, and it's actually bad news, in my opinion. It's not good news. But cheaper, more humane drones emerge as a key weapon in mosquito control from Poland to Africa. and that's on the Good News Network. But when you read the article, it's really, in my opinion, it's bad news. And the use of these Eurasian technologies, these deceptive technologies, is of great concern to me. And then I have another article real quick from the same Good News Network. MIT, as if they're to be trusted, MIT to give bees a break with robot hazmat pollinator. And this is a spraying device that and we know that in their deception, it is again under the guise of helping Mama Earth, of being beneficial to indigenous populations and indigenous ecosystems, right, under the guise of environmentalism. But in reality, all of these things, if not already, will and have been weaponized. And so this hazmat pollinator built by MIT mimics the flight patterns of bees, and is basically a device that just sprays chemicals, or could spray chemicals onto various ecosystems. And the same is true with these drones used as mosquito control. They're not only tracking mosquito populations in real time, which means it has either radar or LiDAR or heat-seeking capabilities, definitely has cameras on it. And it too has a spraying mechanism that dissipates larvicide on suspected mosquito colonies. Well, we we just have to look at history to know very clearly how that could be used in Kenya wrong. And so yeah, it's very interesting how this ecocide, as part of the Omni War, where everything is weaponized. How do we push back on that?
Well, one of the things you talked about, and we need to be familiar with, was the deforestation of Europe. Because we tend to think that Europe, first of all, we've been lied to, and they tell us that Europe is a continent. It's not. It's an
Right.
extension of Asia.
Right.
They don't tell us about the real history of who inhabited it first, because it was African people who inhabited it first.
Yeah, the Grimaldi.
But then with the various waves of Asiatics, Eurasians that came in, the Caucasoid that came in, one of the features that you see when you track their history, one is social disruption, because they come in, even though in the beginning they would always settle on the outskirts of the settled indigenous communities, particularly the big urban centers in Mesopotamia and some of the other places. But once they moved in, it was always social disruption, ecological disruption, war, and ultimately some kind of racial animus and racial hierarchy was established. And so that's what happened when they came into Europe during the various waves of them, and once you trace those waves, when you look at the ecological implications, you see the same thing that Duar is talking about now. This is part of what they've been doing all the while. Particularly because a lot of them were nomads.
Right. So they weren't tied to any one specific location. Ironically, I have a counter article to that, and I'll just mention that real quick. Small Chinese county reverses desertification with arduous tree planting method across 240,000 acres. And that was done on the grassroots, from what I understand. And that's also from the Good News Network. But that is an indigenous, harmonious to Mama Nature, organic solution to repairing some of the ecocide that's gone on. And I know great ancestor Wangari Maathai and her Green Belt initiative in Kenya and across the continent. We must keep her spirit alive. And again, as we always mention, we have the indigenous technology, we have the indigenous knowledge systems and the indigenous wisdom that our ancestors used pre-colonial times to I think there's a great misnomer that African people know nothing about conservation and environmentalism. That is not true. The oldest, here's this for a fact, and then I'll be quiet. The oldest constitution in the world is called the Kurukan Fuga, brought about by Sundiata Keita in modern day Mali. That is the oldest constitution in the world, and in it has environmental and conservation protection of the land and the environment. And yet we believe that nothing good came out of Africa and that our ancestors contributed nothing to world civilization.
Yeah. Another comment has come in, and this from Queen Mother Kashiba. She writes, Kitty, did you see that video on the U.S. government in the 1950s using a experimental fog spray on a black population in St. Louis? Now these people are experiencing cancer. Did either of you happen to see the video or hear that story?
Not that particular story,
Mm-hmm.
but that incident was part and parcel of a series of incidents where they attacked United States citizenry. It wasn't just the black people of St. Louis. They sprayed
That's right.
some toxic material into the subway system of New York. They
That's
sprayed toxic material into the air over San Francisco. They've sprayed and engaged in the mind control, and they with the LSD and certain other
MK
chemicals, biochemical warfare, unbeknownst or not getting any permission from the residents, and there are numerous instances of them doing similar things to incarcerated people. So no, that's not new. We shouldn't be shocked. And again,
well, I think we should be shocked. I have the details up. If you've got about 2 minutes for me to read, and you can just tell me when we heard enough. Yes, this disturbing chapter of U.S. history has come to light through research and survivor testimony. During the 1950s and 1960s, the U.S. Army conducted secret chemical tests in predominantly black neighborhoods of St. Louis, Missouri, including the Pruitt Egoe housing project. They sprayed a compound called zinc cadmium sulfide, which contains cadmium, a known carcinogen. Residents were told that the fog was part of a smoke screen to protect the city from potential Russian aerial attacks. However, later disclosures revealed that the tests were part of a biological weapons system, and St. Louis was chosen because of its urban layout resembling that of Soviet cities. People who lived in these areas recall thick chemical fog drifting from trucks and rooftops, often sprayed by men in hazmat suits. Many residents, including children, played in the mist, unaware of the risks. Over the years, numerous individuals from these neighborhoods have reported high rates of cancer, respiratory issues, and other chronic issues, raising concerns about long-term health effects. One more paragraph. Sociologist Lisa Martino Taylor conducted extensive research and suggested that radioactive particles may have been mixed with the zinc cadmium sulfide. Though this has not been definitively proven, her findings prompted Missouri senators to demand answers from the Army, but no comprehensive health follow-up was ever conducted. So thank you, Queen Mother Kashipa, for alerting me to the depth of this story. Obviously, I'm going to have to go into this broader topic. As Junior's suggested, there are many incidences just like this, but I will be covering this a little bit. So I will be covering this in much more depth in one of my programs this upcoming week.
Well, the reason I say we shouldn't be shocked is because this is part and parcel of a pattern. We talked about Gunnar Myrdal. We talked about the colonization society. But don't forget the Tuskegee experiment. Don't forget the whole mutilation and abuse of Black people during the period of slavery and shortly after what they call Reconstruction. Don't forget the role that an institution like Johns Hopkins played in much of not just the Tuskegee experiment, but a lot of other nefarious and horrific studies on Black people. Don't forget the desecration of our cemeteries and burial grounds. They called them resurrectors. Our people called them resurrectors, these grave robbers that came in and used the remains of our people on their experiments. Experiments, by the way, that for the most part were designed to discover our weaknesses and to further their attacks on humanity, not just Black people. Because don't think they just relegated it to Black people. That whole sterilization, the vast majority of the people who were targeted were white folks because of their number in the population. So if we're familiar with that, then what the sister Kashiba brings up is not shocking. It's just one more example of that kind of mentality.
Aluta continua. The struggle continues and it continues and it continues.
I
Do
I'm
speak
sorry,
out.
Will do. Thank you, Baba. I just put two books in the private chat. If you could possibly push those up in the comments section. These are two of the best books that I have found specifically on what's known as geoengineering or geoengineered transhumanism. And it goes into a lot of the using military sources and citations, goes into a lot of this aerial spray technology, this bio warfare, weaponry, bio defense, geoengineering defense, stuff like that.
All right, I'll push those over there as well. And what's happening here? Something. Oh, the link was kind of long. I have to put it in two pieces. I'm taking a deep breath over here, but I'm getting a little anxious. This is the future, Baba Junius, that your and my baby boomer generation is putting out here. You and I are not guilty, but we have to take responsibility for our entire generation, putting out this future for our generations to follow, to have to clean up this mess.
Well, we have to. Yeah, well, part of our obligation is to pass the information on, whether people listen to us or not. Because when we tried to warn them about the COVID thing, they didn't listen. The vast majority of them didn't listen. They went against the very series of things that we're talking about now, even though most of them didn't know anything about it. A lot of that stuff, because I had engaged conversations with people that I've known pretty much all my life. So, as you say, the struggle continues, and even more so now in the times we're in. We have to engage. We have to be resilient. We have to be. I'm doing a piece doing something on adversity. So it requires decisiveness. We have to have the knowledge. We have to understand what's going on. We have to have perseverance. We have to do a self-assessment. What can we do better? We have to be adaptable. We have to use creativity and innovation. We have to have confidence and courage because we're up against major evil in the world.
Mm.
And so all of these things are required if we're going to attempt to save our people.
Mm-hmm. I say we do definitely agree with that. Um, we have plenty of time to talk about things. I'm just a little discombobulated right now. I'm trying to balance out putting up all these links and doing all things in the background. So it's hard for me to think on such serious topics as we're talking about today and still be able to manage the complexities of running LIB radio at the time. So bear with me if I do sound disjointed and my conversation seems to be random. But we're talking about some scary stuff today, brothers.
Well, we're always talking about scary stuff. And we're always talking about stuff on a global level, from a global perspective, and from a perspective of Ubuntu and Ma'at. So that hasn't changed. It's just, I think that much of what we're dealing with can at times, because we're being inundated with so much information, disinformation, propaganda, it can be overwhelming. And the key thing is not to be afraid. Again, they use fear as their primary tool.
Right.
Fear and disinformation, propaganda. And so one of the roles of the mastermind and one of the roles of LIB radio is to inform people, put out the counter information. One of the lessons Marcus Garvey talked about was propaganda. And he did it at a time in the early 19th century when he was talking about propaganda. So was Edward Bernays. He dealt with again, because we talked about Marcus Garvey a couple of weeks ago, he embraced and integrated the New Thought movement into his African nationality and the African diaspora movement. So we have to be the same. Again, I said we have to be innovative. We have to be resourceful. We have to be unrelenting. We have to be undeterred, because otherwise you get the bet. They get you. And yes, there are times when we are discouraged. There are times when we're like, where are the rest of the people? They're out there. We just haven't connected with them. We have to do a better job of intergenerational connectedness, like you just said, pass the torch, pass not just the torch, but the weapons, the psychological awareness, and all of that, so that we can fulfill what we're put here to do, which is to rumble against this dystopian world order.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with Baba Junius. It goes back to game theory, and if we're gonna look at it like a game, then we might as well make some of it fun. And that goes to several principles that I wanted to bring up in terms of solutions. One, let's start by preserving humanity, even just within our own family. We have control as to basically allowing for what I call Kijiji time or village time, where we put down the technological quote unquote smart devices, where we eat together, and so I'm suggesting that start by creating your own local micro village. And the first step is just start with a monthly potluck. That's all you have to do. Pick a day on the calendar. And Baba Kidi, you've been doing this for years. and
Hmm.
creating community. That is where I think our most slept on, but our biggest and most potent medicine is community. No one can do it by themselves. And that's one thing that our ancestors used as the emblem of communality, the emblem of collectivism, the emblem of uh, communalism was that image of the staff. And that's why the elder always carries a staff, because it's a reminder that we all must have something to lean on. You can't do it by yourself. And so creating these moments for communal humanism, I'll call it, is a very potent medicine that I sometimes think we often neglect and forget. There's a very popular book called Lost Connections by this British guy, and in that book is the cure for depression. And really, I want to give the author credit for being able to put this together, but at the same time, these are African things. The solutions in that book, Lost Connections, are all African. Start a garden, go back to nature, be part of a community, have a purpose in life, know what your purpose is so you can beautify the world and enhance the world with your spiritual gifts. Sometimes I think we are trying so hard to reinvent the wheel that we forget the fundamentals. We forget the foundational basics. And that's why I always open with Ubuntu, Ma'at, to our LIB global family. In those two African words, Ma'at and Ubuntu, are really the solutions to all our problems, encapsulated deep within it. And so I'm suggesting, let us just start by locally creating our own micro village, and that'll lead to the bigger thing, which is Kujichagulia villages, which is our survival arc. But first, maybe we need to create a survival rowboat or a survival lifeboat so we can get to the larger survival arc. And that's just going to start locally. And again, I myself make a storm out of a cup of water. And I forget that I just need to look at a calendar, pick a date, invite some people, and let's celebrate life together. Because that's my main point here, is that, as Baba Junior has mentioned, fear and propaganda and perceptions management and the psyops and the psy war and the information warfare, all of that is designed to make us believe that we are a minority in thinking this way, that we have no allies, that we are alone, isolated, in solitude. And the way to combat that is to create community.
I'd say you're making an excellent point, of which I am in complete accord. Now we just got to get on it and move, having those dinners on a regular basis. It works. And humans are not designed by nature, by divine force, to be isolated. It's mentally disturbing. It puts us all in some sort of mental discombobulation, and it's not good for our long-term health. It's very stressful. So the best way to break that is just to reach out and to include other people into our lives. It's hard to do. People have to be encouraged to do so. I have a couple of clients that I've been dealing with, one I've been dealing with for a number of years, and she is not at all living the healthy life. She's living the exact opposite of a healthy life. And the situation had gone so far that I said to her, you cannot do this alone. You cannot continue to be isolated. But the thing is that she's so isolated and so deep in that torment of the isolation that she won't break it. She won't break that isolation. She won't stop another person, even if it's just randomly stop a person on the street and say, I need you to come over to my house.
But again, isolation was ramped up, was used as part of the tool, was part of the psyop, knowing full well that even Eurasians have some form of connectedness. Not so much like Afro-Asian people, but they do recognize that cooperation and collusion are paramount for success. The horrific propaganda and the death spiral of COVID was because they put fear in us to the point that we broke our social bounds. And so when you look at people like African people, you look at our system, just ride around your neighborhood and look at the faces on the people, look at the blank eyes and just how out of it folks, it's all because of that trauma. That traumatized us so much. The whole separation of the community, separation of generations, the isolation with this constant bombardment of fear and these images of these computer generated images of the coronavirus. This is all fake stuff, but nonetheless, it had an impact on our people. And reversing that is going to be very difficult. I'm not saying you can't do it because we're social people. We like to gather, we like to congregate. But the question is, what is the purpose and what benefits come out of that other than just being together, which is a good thing, but we need to also reinforce that with information, critical information, so that people can bounce back.
I say. So true, so true. Are we, do we have any other stories that we want to put on the table for today?
I have several. I'll start with one that says, when smartphones get smarter, do we get dumber? And I know, Baba Kitty, that's something that you have been talking about for many, many years. I remember the exact quote that you said. You said, it seems like the smarter these phones get, the dumber we get. And so with this being said, there's a book that this author wrote called The I Mind, Artificial and Real Intelligence. And in it, he watched his, well, I'll just read a couple of paragraphs if I may. So this author, Mohammed El-Masri, he watched his 11 and 10-year-old grandchildren tapping away on their smartphones. He posed a simple question: what's 1/3 of 9? Instead of taking a moment to think, they immediately opened their calculator apps, he writes in the book. Later, fresh from a family vacation in Cuba, he asked them to name the island's capital. Once again, their fingers flew to their devices, Googling the answer rather than recalling their recent experience. And then it goes on to say, with 60% of the global population and 97% of those under 30 years old using smartphones, technology has inadvertently become an extension of our own thinking process. However, everything comes at a cost. Cognitive outsourcing, which involves relying on external systems to collect or process information, may increase one's risk of cognitive decline. And so he goes into some examples of habitual GPS use has been linked to significant decrease in spatial memory, reducing one's ability to think independently. And then AI applications such as Chat GPT becoming the household norm. Recent studies have found that it has resulted in impaired critical thinking skills, dependency, loss of decision making, and laziness. So fast forwarding all the way to the bottom, there's this doctor that claims we're becoming more machine-like, Dr. Jason Liu, and a medical doctor who has also had a doctorate in neuroscience. He said that he has observed irregularities in his young patients who spend excessive time in the digital world, noticing their mechanical speech, lack of emotional expression, poor eye contact, difficulty forming genuine human connections. Many exhibit ADHD symptoms, responding with detachment and struggling with emotional fragility. We should not let technology replace our human nature. So this is just one article that I have found very, very interesting in terms of delving into now the science behind what is happening by us further being captured and put on not these physical floating dungeons, but these virtual dungeons, these virtual quote unquote death vessels or slave ships that we find so many of our young people just absolutely addicted to. I know the young people in my life, they're having trouble sleeping because they are just addicted to the algorithms and to the formulaic addictive processes specifically designed with these phones. And I'll just give one quick story, which is a close friend of mine had some relatives up from down south, and she had been Googling and going on TikTok to find information about African ancestry, and I recommended a couple of books to her. But here she was, her whole entire family up from the south, or a large portion of it, and she did not think to go down there with a notepad and paper to interview her relatives. Instead, she was locked onto the phone and trying to figure out her history through these genealogy sites and through these stupid Uruguayan applications of insanity. This is part of what these younger generations, our younger generations, are going to have to face. Is don't throw away your elders. Do not discount experiences of older people in your life. Do not trade in their wisdom for ChatGTP, Google, TikTok, YouTube, and all that stuff. Sorry for my rant, Babas.
Well, no, your rant was hard. It's hard to disagree with any of the key points that you raised there. No, I can't disagree with a word you said. So your rant stands.
Yeah, and you know, when you go on some of these sites, they have the upvote and the downvote. Well, you get my upvote.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that, Baba. Thank you.
yeah, you get my like button for that.
Thank
We do
you.
encourage our listening audience to today hit the like button. Make sure that you spread the word about what we do here on our Rumble channel. We want more people to participate in what we're doing. And of course, this is the final day of our emergency Black August fund drive. And I'm going to say an optimistic note about the fund drive as soon as I can just kind of anchor myself in the positive. It was necessary, and we did raise money. How's that? It wasn't, it was more necessary than the funds we raised, but that'll have to be okay. This is the last day of the month, the last day of our emergency August fund drive, and I don't want to carry this on into September. Although we will be altering our plans, if not so much the plans centered around LIV Radio, but I will miss the Festac conference. There were actually two conferences that I wanted to attend in Ghana, and I will be missing them.
Well,
Sorry to hear that.
this is part of the struggle. And my advice to you is don't be apologetic about asking for help. Didn't we just talk? Didn't we just go through a thing about isolation? You can't do this by yourself. You don't have the resources. And even if you did, you would diminish them because they're not getting replenished. So don't be ashamed or don't be embarrassed about having to ask for help. We know that in the past, when you had campaigns, you always gave a report on how much money was raised, what the money went for. So there was an element of transparency that we don't see in the government or a lot of these other organizations. And the struggle is real. And it comes down to a select group of supporters. You know, we used to have that group, the 5 percenters. They were talking about, you know, basically everybody ain't gonna make it.
Right.
And even on the Falcon Forum, that was one of the things that several of the participants would always say. There's a significant number of our people that aren't going to make it. And what we're attempting to do is increase the number of people who do make it. And so don't be apologetic. Don't be apologetic about that. The other thing is that people have to realize that for the most part, it's a one-man operation. You were doing all the programming 7 days a week. Even when you weren't on live, you have to figure out what type of programming, select that, get clearance so that you can stream that. And it takes a lot. Plus, write books, plus have your own life. It takes a lot. And the key thing is sacrifice. And so many people have an entitlement mentality. They've eschewed the whole process of sacrifice, personal sacrifice, collective sacrifice for the greater good. And that's one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in as a people.
Yeah. Good points you make. Thank you for sharing those insights. And we do the best we can with the resources that we got. Some of us do even more. Some of us do it to the point where it begins to deplete us, and then we're reminded you can't go that far. You can't do everything, not by yourself. So, yeah, you're right, Baba Junius. Let me do the best I can to convince others to do as well. If someone else were to come up with an LIB radio that, you know, would be resembling something like this, and there are others that are doing it. I could name some names. Maybe I'll do a program this week naming all the others that are like us, that if we should somehow, some way disappear, we're going to pass the torch along. But then again, I heard about, I think, 3 more failures of my favorite go-to African centered, Pan-African centered broadcast. I heard about 3 more failures, I think, just very recently in the past week or two. I heard about them in the past week or two, but they had been gone, I guess, for some time.
I frequent a lot of European or Euro-American sites, various levels, various political within the spectrum. They're always asking for money, unless they're supported by some kind of foundation or some kind of organization. So in our situation, when we're looking at history, we're looking at history of Black media, conscious, righteous media, that has always been a challenge. Support, distribution, keeping it going, longevity. And so again, I'm going to say, I encourage our viewers and listeners to do what you can. It doesn't require a lot. All it requires is some initiative. You see the crawl underneath, support LIB Radio and the Black Star Media. You have that opportunity. You can send a check. You go to the website, get an address to send a physical check. There are e-commerce opportunities and options that you can take advantage of. we should not be ashamed of having to encourage our viewers to support us. You go on any TV station and see these popular evangelical programs or these ministries, they always include several times during the program a push, a promo to support their quote unquote ministry. We have to do likewise, because when we look at the history of media, there are two models for the most part: advertising and viewer or listener support, either through subscriptions, donations, or you might have a patron or group.
Mm-hmm.
Black people, it's been very cumbersome because they attacked Allie Howes and they attacked Marcus Garvey for that very reason, because that's where the source of their funds came from back then, was through the U.S. mail. So they attacked them on that level. We have electronic means, we have the mail, all of that. So I'm encouraging you to either make a recurring donation, be a regular, monthly, weekly, whatever you can, quarterly, or even a one-time donation. Because I've been a part of several prominent internet radio stations, and they all went out offline for various reasons. One of the key reasons was lack of funding. One went because of the .com bubble burst.
Mm.
That was a Black World Today, which was one of the most popular because we were early on. It was back in 2000, 1999, 2000. We were one of the top. Don Rojas put that together. The .com bubble burst, went under. Same thing with New Black City in St. Louis. They opted to do something else with public access TV, so they shut down their radio operation. Harambe went under because of Delani made his transition. But even because of the proliferation of the media, more and more people could be independent producers and creators, as they say, that had diluted the pool. So there are a lot of factors that go into this. But one thing you have to look at is look at the track record of LIB radio. Look at its integrity. Is it integrous? Yes. Have there been any scandals? Have there been any problems? No real scandals. There have been issues are centered around survival and time management and resource management, but that's anything you do. So again, I'm encouraging you to, because even when I was on Neil's program, Neil's station, and I was playing music, I was doing talk, and all of that, I always had a promo for support to support the station. And even with that, and even with all the great people we had on Rainbow Soul, I still wasn't able to keep it going. And firsthand, because we were peers. And we collaborated with each other. Even look at what happened with the global African presidents over in London, where the government went after them. So these are all the challenges that we face. No one goes through life without challenges. So it's incumbent upon us to solve our own problem and do what we have to do and prove to ourselves, if we're as great as we say we are, then prove it.
I wanna say something very similar, but I want to put out a challenge to all our listeners. I just made a $100 contribution to LIB Radio, Black Star Media, LIBT, and I'm challenging our listeners to match me. To think of all the corporations we support without question, from Verizon to Pfizos to National Grid and Eversource and Whole Foods and Kroger's and Wegmans and Stop and Shop, Dunkin' Donuts, Wendy's, Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Long John Silver, if anyone still eats that garbage. You have Comcast, you have AT&T, T-Mobile, Apple, Meta, Alphabet, Google. All of these corporations are siphoning major amounts of money from us, and yet we don't bat a lash when it comes to pressing that button to pay that bill. And so unless and until we see LIB as a major infrastructure in our own cultural life, then we're just going to continue to be brushed aside by the other players in the game, so to speak. And so again, I'm challenging all our listeners, match me. I just put up $100.
Wow.
Well, I'll dovetail on that. I have a current donation is $10 a month. Ongoing. I would encourage listeners, if you are not able to match, and we have many viewers and listeners who are able to, but if you're not able, match my $10 a month donation. Make it an ongoing donation. And I think we will begin to see just how valuable we are. And also, it means that we have to keep our promises to ourselves. We say we value LIB. Well, let's prove it. Let's make the sacrifice. Let's do what has to be done to keep it going, because trust me, Disney, Comcast, Universal, the Rupert Group, Murdoch Group, they have the resources, but they don't have our best interest. And the way they play the game theory is it's always zero sum. In order for them to win, we must lose. And I'm not about to concede to them.
I say
Zero sum game theory. In order for them to win, and we can look across the spectrum, we can see a lot of winners in the world today. But they are doing that knowing that we will lose, because that's what a zero sum game is all about. And we're going to keep on trying. I thank you, Brother Dewar. I can't thank you enough, so let me just thank you often. I thank you. But we're going to continue to teach. There's a lot of our people that need to know about game theory. If I just purpose LIB radio to just teach that one thing, game theory, and upping our game the way we compete against others in this world, that would be a good mission. But much of the LIB radio mission is about teaching people how to keep your body healthy, how to stay out of the grasp of the med pharma complex. You see my program, it's been very consistent. And so that's a beautiful thing as well. This week I did a program, what is the cost of being sick in America? And I featured these chronic diseases, and I gave a 10-year annual, an average 10 years of an annual expense of dealing with these various diseases. And it was shocking. For every disease, I have put a program on LIB radio for our people to avoid that disease. But people are not, obviously they're not avoiding it. I'm going to look up, I'm going to find that section right now. Here it is right now. I'm looking at this. I'm going to show this graphic. Bear with me as I show this graphic. Bear with me 1 second, real quick. StreamYard, add the graphic, and don't invite a guest, add a graphic. Sorry about that. I want you to look at this graphic right now, and you tell me whether or not an investment in LIB radio would be worth what we are here to prevent. Now, you see the graphic is right there on the screen. No, you don't see it on the screen. You do see it here in the box, and I added it to the stage. You can see the screen. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right.
Now, looking at the bottom left of this particular graphic, I'm going to zoom in on this idea of average 10-year per capita cost of selected chronic diseases in the U.S. I begin with diabetes. There is a cure for diabetes. We've been talking about that book and the program for years. The average 10-year cost for diabetes, $197,360. $197,360. Let's look at cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is easily preventable with lifestyle changes. The cost for 10 years average from $77,000 to $358,000. Cancer, the cost in the final year. I said the final year because in the final year, they give you back a carcass. The final year of cancer is $109,727 in the final year. Arthritis, $115,000 in direct expenses. Kidney disease with dialysis, $400,000 to $1.2 million over the course of 10 years. That is average. Hypertension, high blood pressure, from $14,000 to $90,000. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, average 10 years, $16,850. Brothers, if all of these diseases are preventable, and the classes that I teach on LIB Radio show our people how to prevent them, then the question is how does that prevention compare to a one-time donation like you made today, Brother Dwara? Because I know you're going to use this information.
Mm-hmm. Been using it. And
You've been using it.
And
how many of these diseases do you currently support?
Do I have?
Do you have, or your spouse or someone in your circle of embrace? How much
None.
do you? None.
None. Absolutely none.
So what's up with the rest of us? What's up with the rest of us? We're going to get it together.
Outside of
We're
those
going to get it together.
crazy, outside of those crazy cousins, of course, but you know,
Yeah.
everyone in my immediate circle is on no pharmaceutical medication whatsoever, and whether young or old is in tip-top optimal health.
But wait a minute, Brother Dwara. You do see those social media and television commercials selling you the GLP-1 inhibitors and metformin and all these others.
But,
well, we are the antidote to all of that. We are the selection of people should choose. Unfortunately, 95% of African Americans are on pharmaceutical drugs.
well, I feel like I have a new slogan for LIB. LIB, the anti-venom.
Yeah.
The
Man.
The antidote to the serpent's poison. LIB.
Yeah. That's right. We are the antidote to the serpent and its poison. And of course, those of us know who the serpent is in this case. But nonetheless, we get punished for what we do. We got punished by YouTube by being thrown off for giving the people another alternative course other than taking those vaccines. And don't get me started about the aftermath of those vaccines, because right now, YouTube has kind of quietly slinked away, because not all, but most of all of the information that we put out and that everyone else was putting out that YouTube called misinformation is now statistically proven to be true. And it's even worse. It's even worse.
Right.
So we're going to do the best we can. Baba Junius?
But we're seeing that because one of the things we want to talk about is RFK and the CDC, the
Oh,
turmoil
good
that's
point.
going on over there. And just look at, if you go up to Slay News and the Brownstone Institute, just look at their stories. They reinforce all the things that we said 5 years ago. And about the RNA, mRNA vaccines. So
Mm-hmm.
then when you couple this with your information, you couple this with the push for these, Wegovy, Ozempic, and all the rest of them, that's going to be the new fad.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all the more reason people should support LIB. I mean, it's not polite to say I told you so, but we told you so.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need to look at. And to the point, the floodgates have not opened, but more and more people are aware of it. It's just that the legacy media has a vested interest in maintaining the genocide.
That's right. So we're going to keep on. We're going to keep on stepping. We're going to keep on going, and hopefully, those who have been reluctant, those who know they can't afford at least $10 on a subscription payment, they're going to at a certain point look in the mirror and say, "Hey, I guess they're talking about me." One, I have not been putting into practice what I'm learning here on LAB Radio, and two, many people are going to say I have not been supporting LIB Radio. Well, I want both of your positions on those 2 points to reverse themselves. Put into practice the information you get. And two, just a short, a small subscription. You can go to the front page of libradio.com. Scroll down to the bottom and you'll see the subscription link to be able to put up a link. And you will see the link to PayPal, and you can make a one-time donation. The Cash app is scrolling in your browser, and we could do the best we can to do the best that we can. And you know something? I personally think the best we can do is pretty awesome.
Mm.
I really do believe that. As pessimistic as I sound sometimes, I do see our people acting, and I think that's really awesome.
Ashe. I had one more article that I wanted to get in and end on a little bit of a positive note.
Mm-hmm.
And that is from the Epoch Times. The article I mentioned earlier, Stop Imagining Dystopia. We can create a Garden of Eden future. And then the byline says, movies like The Terminator are a warning, but every one of us has the opportunity to co-create a different future and take steps towards it. This article is by Molly Engelhart, and the date on that is 8/23/2025. And she just goes into talking about look around at all the stories we've been told about the future on television, in movies, in books. Almost all of them are dystopian. Controlled cities, collapsing ecosystems, machines overtaking humans. Positive visions are so rare, they feel almost radical. What if that's not accidental? What if our thoughts, speech, beliefs, and actions, all of which shape the reality we live in, are being coached towards imagining collapse? When we are constantly fed visions of destruction, it narrows the scope of what we think is possible. And when we can't imagine anything beyond dystopia, we stop building towards anything better. And the article goes on and on and on. It's a brief article, but it goes on to really talk about how we can embrace agriculture and how we don't have to allow our food supply to be consolidated into the hands of a few corporations. And then she talks about regenerative agriculture and how for the first time in years she felt genuine hope when she put her hands back into the soil. Yeah, it's just a positive article, one that I think is one I would like to end on for my portion of today's broadcast, anyways, to just give us a little bit of hope. And I'm tying that directly into Kuji Chagalia villages too. That is my main point here. This isn't just about some white woman that wrote this wonderful sounding article. No. Our version of what she's talking about is Kuji Chagalia villages. Ashe.
Just want to elaborate on what Duar just said. That's the essence of mind control, that aspect of predictive programming where the target of the mind control receives the programming, it's implanted in his psyche, and he or she thinks it's self-generated when in fact it's a form of outside influence. But we're not aware of it because we don't understand media literacy, we don't understand mind control and the power of a psyop. So I just wanted to elaborate and give kudos for bringing that to our attention. And my last thing I want to talk about, and it's consistent with what we started in the beginning, talking about Trump, is attack on the Federal Reserve and his attack on Lisa Cook and Jerome Powell. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because he wants Powell and the Fed to reduce interest rates, which would be somewhat catastrophic. But like I said last week, the U.S. money supply, which is referred to as M2, has reached its highest level in the history of this country. And we're talking about money in circulation, savings accounts, things like that, which is the real cause of inflation, which is the devaluation of the currency that's already in circulation, which causes the money to be worth more, so that you got to use more of it to get what you need. But the media is not telling us about this. And what he's doing to Lisa Cook, she might have some issues, but she's breaking the buck all over again.
Buck breaking. That's pretty serious, Papa Juniors.
Well, he's trying to reshape the Federal Reserve governors in his image. He wants to have a direct impact and influence on policy. And people are falling for the okie doke, and because she's a black woman, a deeply melanated black woman, it's easy for people to think the worst of her, and quite naturally they will continue to come up with more and more things, so-called evidence of her improprieties. So that'll be one less person, and that'll set the tone, and everybody else, he's anticipating everybody else will buckle, and then he'll get rid of Jerome Powell, and then, moving on. But all of this is this authoritarianism, just going buck wild.
We're going to begin to wrap it up. To the very best of our abilities, we have come today with the mastermind, and we did the best we can to lay out good information for our people to research all week long. And hopefully we'll encourage you to be with us again tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday as we continue to explore all of the things that we do here on the LIB Radio. I want to thank you, brothers, for being with me, for bringing it strong, being well prepared to inform the people, and for, backing up the reason why you continue to support and to believe in our LIB Radio. Queen Mother Kashiba is in the house. She says, I tried to make a donation on Rumble. It threw me off before I could complete this transaction. We can And Gus says, yes, Queen Mother Kashiba, it is clunky, but Gus was able to get one through. Yes, Brother Gus, I see you have sent your rant, and I thank you very much for that. And we're going to begin to wrap it up. You can always, Queen Mother Kashiba, if you choose, you can use our Cash app. If that one's too confusing, you let me know and we'll work out whatever we need to do. People can Cash app it at $ KEIDIOBI. That is the Cash App link, and we'll make it as easy as possible for all of you to participate. Thank you very much, Queen Mother Kashiba, and everyone else for all you do, all you have done. We do show great appreciation for all of you. So, on that note, did we all get our final rant or final wrap up for today, Brother Dwara?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I did my donation through PayPal. There is a
Yeah.
link on the LIB Radio homepage down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through there. That's another option for people. libradio.com, correct? That's another
That's a good link to use. PayPal gets a little cut. I have no problem with that.
okay.
We do the best we can with what we have, and then we are always looking for better opportunities to do even better in the future. I have no problem with PayPal and with Rumble. They have to pay for their platforms as well.
So Cash App is the better one.
Cash App is okay. If I need the money real fast, they get a little portion of it. But if I can just wait a half a week or so, they don't take a cut off of it. What they do is they take the money to the gambling casino and play with it for a couple of days,
Right.
which is what the bank does, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
No,
not necessarily the gambling casino, but the Wall Street, same thing.
Exact same thing.
Baba Junius, did you get your final word
I'm
in
complete.
for today?
I'm satisfied, and I'm hoping that people will heed the call and do what they know they can do, what they know they can afford, and to keep this platform running, keep it functioning at a level that we have come to expect, and eventually to the point we can take it to another level.
That's right. There's nothing to stop us except for our own lack of energy to put into what we have and what we do. There were a couple of stories from Africa. I wanted to just mention Africa, why the African Continental Free Trade Agreement can't simply plug the U.S. trade gap. And that's very important because the trade gap opened up by Donald Trump's tariffs between Africa and the U.S., African Americans, black people in America, could, if we coordinated our actions, we could step in and fill in that gap left by American tariffs on African produced goods. And somehow, some way, we're going to stop and think about what can we be contributing to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That's very important. Another story, Mauritius, the East African Ocean, and I call it the African Ocean, not the Indian Ocean, nation is charging reparations. The Mauritius Chagos residents demand reparations, not regrets. On the aftermath of another UK apology for the Chagos archipelago and having kicked all of the people off of what they call Diego Garcia, kicked them all off the largest island and got rid of the people. Now the British want to apologize. No, we don't want your apology. We want reparations. And so we stand in solidarity with the people of Mauritius for that very important point. Another headline, we got to watch this one. France and Senegal to reset ties as Macron hosts Faye in Paris. Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron and personally I think that that's kind of suspicious, and
Hmm.
we need to be paying attention to it. I know Queen Mother Sheba, you will be paying attention to that one. Very important. And one more story from Senegal. Senegal mourns Theory war heroes slain by French troops 80 years ago. During World War II, the French came into Sierra Leone and massacred as many as 300 to 400 Senegalese soldiers. Now, 80 years later, the investigation is finally going on. So, what was that about? What do we know about it? We need to talk about that. Maybe I'll do a show on that this week. And that's my contribution today. So, was it a good day? Hopefully, it was. We didn't have to use the AK. And thank you to everyone for your support on your LIB radio. And that's my final thoughts.
Ashe.
All right, Ashe.
Ashe, yo. So we have come together. So be it. The ancestors are pleased with our behavior today. And I don't know, did I bring up last week? I think I skipped it last week, and I didn't intend to skip it. That one of our dear teachers in the community had made his transition last weekend. Imhotep Al Kabalan. Did I mention that last week?
No, I don't. I don't think you
No.
did.
Yeah. Are you aware who Imhotep Al Kabalan was?
I'm not immediately familiar. The name sounds
Yeah.
familiar, but no.
Yeah. Well, he was the spiritual teacher at the Wose community, African community in Sacramento, California. He
Mm.
also hosted a regular Wednesday night class on Zoom, and I was a participant. Brother Imhotep and I think we met one time years ago when I was invited to speak up there. I know we met because that I was invited to speak at a conference in Sacramento, and I remember the editor of Essence magazine. What was her name? Beautiful, beautiful woman.
Susan Taylor.
Susan Taylor spoke also. She was kind of the moderator of the conference, and Imhotep and I met at that time. And let me tell you, Susan Taylor was so incredibly graceful. So I was surprised at her level of Pan-African awareness. And so I do remember meeting Imhotep Al Kabalan at that conference. But we got a chance to know each other really, really well on the Zoom conferences every Wednesday. That was where I would be. So to the great ancestor Imhotep Kabalan, may your heart be judged as light as a feather on the scales of Ma'at. May your journey through the underworld into the great realm of the ancestors, Amenta, be sweet and swift. Oh, great ancestor, we vow to remember your great African name, Imhotep Al Kabalan. It also reminds us, people, there are serious diseases that I need to know about. I want you to, if you have been diagnosed with a serious disease, a life-threatening disease, you need to contact me as soon as you know about it. I can help. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Ashe, Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe
Ashe.
yo. And on that note, you've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Tell your friends to tell their friends that we have our own now. And we are here to complete you. And that's what we are all about. Wish you all peace and prosperity. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.